Hey, interest rates aren't doing anybody any favor here recently. With rates hovering around 8%, that can lead to a lot of sticker shock for you potential home buyers out there. Well, today we're going to give you a little bit of a tip that might be able to save you some money in your first couple of years of home ownership. Today we are talking 2-1 rate buy downs. Let's go. Welcome back to the channel. Dave Greathouse, Remax Above and Beyond, and the Greathouse team right here in Cleveland. And we have a special guest today, Miss Julie Eccleston from Rocket Mortgage. Today we're talking about interest rates and more specifically about rate buy downs. And Julie, you and I have had a couple of conversations about this recently, and I don't think enough people know about rate buy downs. And with the interest rates being what they are, I think it's a great time to talk about it. So welcome to the channel.
Yeah, thanks for having me, for sure.
Of course. Can you just, I guess in layman's terms, explain what a rate buy down is?
Yep. So the program that is really kind of gaining traction in today's day and age is called a 2-1 buy down. And one of the really great things for clients, since we know interest rates are more elevated than maybe they have been in the past 3 to 5 years, it allows them to get into a home without the extreme payment shock that maybe they're expecting. So it's a fixed rate loan. It's a 30-year fixed rate loan, although you can do shorter terms. But the beauty of them is that in the first year, your interest rate is 2% lower. In the second year, it's 1% lower. And then year 3 through 30, you would have just kind of your locked in interest rate. And it's a really great step program to get used to a mortgage payment and to help build on your affordability.
That's great. Yeah. So first 2 years, you're getting a reduced payment. You're basically getting less of an interest rate than you would if you just took it traditionally. And I know none of us can predict interest rates, right? I mean, everybody's wrong every time we try to predict it. So I don't even try to get into that business. But I think if you look at a lot of data out there, people are thinking maybe in a year or two, we might see some drops in interest rates. So at year 3, maybe they have a chance to maybe refinance it if the rates do go down.
Yeah. And the nice part is with these programs, there isn't a prepayment penalty. So, say you're a year and a half in, we see an opportunity where interest rates drop, and you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to refinance because it's a great time. You don't just lose that money, because essentially that money gets put into a little separate pot or piggy bank, if you will, specifically to offset your monthly payments. So that actually will come off of what you owe on your loan, making
Hmm.
your principal balance of what you have to refinance even lower if
Hmm.
you were to refinance. And you're right, obviously, the trend is maybe not our friend right now where interest rates are concerned. But with so much going on in our economy, both locally and globally, there is a lot of thought that, hey, in the next 12, 24 months, we might see a little bit of a shift in a direction where we will see interest rates go down.
Cool. So if I understand what you're saying correctly, let's say that I have an interest rate today of 8.
Hmm.
My first year, my interest rate is going to be 6.
Hmm.
My second year, it'll go up to 7.
Hmm.
And then in year 3, it goes back up to 8. Is that an easy
Yep.
way of kind of explaining it?
Yep, that's what you would pay at. Your interest rate would always be 8%, but you are
Right.
getting the benefit of having this little piggy bank to offset that payment that you would pay at that step amount, which can save you on a $250,000 loan. Your first year, you're talking about a $300 less payment on a monthly
Wow.
basis. On your second year, you're still saving about 180, and then obviously your payment would go to your normal traditional level year 3 to 30 should you be in that loan for the
Yeah.
entire amount of time.
You know what I'm thinking is this would be perfect for, and I know we have a client right now that this is going to apply to, but somebody who maybe is starting a new job or getting a promotion at work. They think, hey, in the next year or two, I'm going to be making more money than I am today. In fact, the gentleman that we're working with now is due to make more money next year. This is perfect for them.
Yeah, It really is, as his income grows, great his payment and his affordability. So when we think about the housing market and we think about mortgages and the challenges with buying a house that many feel in this marketplace, one, it's a little bit of a shock in the fact that things have changed so much so quickly. But two, it really comes back to affordability of what do I feel comfortable affording right now. And so sometimes if you can incrementally increase your payment or incrementally increase, what your finances are, it makes it a little bit easier. Even if you're like, I know I can jump 2 feet in and I can afford it, just because you can doesn't mean you want to. And a lot of clients love this option. And a lot of sellers love this option as well of being able to say, hey, I'm going to help pay for a 2-1 buy down or some type of buy down like this, because it is helping entice more buyers who are maybe saying, okay, I don't know if I feel 100% comfortable making that big of a leap in what it is that I'm paying for housing, right away. It gives them
Yeah.
that kind of like baby steps.
And you made a good point earlier when you said your interest rate is whatever it is today. It's just you're paying at a different rate. So this is a fixed interest rate, right? There is no adjustable rate here. It just so happens you're getting the benefit the first 2 years. Is that correct?
Correct. And
Cool.
it's better in this market as opposed to something like a true adjustable rate mortgage program where you have a very short amount of time, but then your interest rate can increase. And if you look at sometimes some of those variables, it can go up or down by 5% in your very first year. That's a pretty wide swing,
Yeah.
especially with what we've seen over the past couple of years. So this is a great way to say, hey, I know what my exact cap is going to be, my exact payment is going to be, and give you a little bit more time to prepare for it as well.
Yeah. So the next question is, how do you pay for it?
Oh, that's a great question.
Mhm.
So you can get a buy down, or you can be qualified for this program. The most popular way is through seller concessions or seller paid closing costs. So when you're working with an awesome realtor like
Hey.
you would go through, you would make that offer, and you would say, hey, I want X amount of dollars towards prepaids, closing costs, and buy down costs, right? And so then we can utilize that to say, okay, we're going to put that money again in a little bit of a piggy bank to offset your payments, and that's going to be right there for you. But traditionally, it does come from seller contributions.
Yeah. The I guess obstacle that I've seen is that the seller maybe doesn't understand, right? Because if somebody is asking for closing costs, they might look like I guess, a less strong buyer. But I think it's important that, as a buyer, your agent has that conversation with another agent that says, hey, look, they're strong buyers. They don't need the money. They're going to have enough money to, close, no problem. But we're just trying to help them get a better interest rate. And I think
Mhm.
everybody can understand that given where things are at today.
Yeah. And I think that that is too where having a great, what I like to refer to as a buying team, right? If you are
Yeah.
a client and you are buying a house, there are a lot of folks that are helping you with that transaction. You've got to have a great realtor, you've got to have a great loan officer, and you've got to make sure that they work together, because a lot of times, if we can say the same message and explain it the same way, whether it is to the client, whether it is to a listing agent, or others that are going to be involved in the transaction, it really does go a long way of saying, okay, I get it. And one thing I always try and prep, clients that I'm working with as well, hopefully to help out my realtor friends, is say, hey, like if we're going to go this strategy, just know you might go a little over ask. You might
Yeah.
offer them a little bit more than what it is that they're saying so that they can give you, a little bit back, and it will ultimately help you in your affordability.
Yeah, and I always try to explain that to buyers is if you're offering 250 and you want $6,000 in credits, you
Hmm.
offer them 256,
Hmm.
right? You build it into your offer so that way it's not a net loss for the seller when they go to compare your offer to somebody who doesn't have
Yeah.
closing costs. And you make a great point about having your team. These kind of conversations, between lender and buyer's agent and buyer should be happening before you're making offers,
a
right?
hundred
This isn't
percent.
something that you just kind of figure out on the fly. Let's get under contract and figure it out. You want to know, what's my payment going to be like? What do I need to get from the seller before you even write the offer?
Yeah. For sure. So that you know what you are. And I know you and I have some really great clients that we've worked with together. And I love the fact that we work together to say, okay, great, send me that address. Let's talk about payments. What can we maybe do to make sure that it's a good fit? At the end of the day, I always look at real estate and housing, especially when it comes to like a primary residence of, look, it's an investment. We don't always want to think of it that way as like a wealth vehicle or just kind of an investment. It's just a very emotional investment because of the fact that, hey, this is where we live our lives for money. This is where you raise your children. But at the end of the day, it's an investment. You've got to make sure that the numbers work for you and work into your budget and your lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I was just reading yesterday. I think it was like over the last 50 some years, the average interest rate is 7.7%.
Hmm.
But there were some years where, I mean, it was like 16, 17, 18% interest rates. So now, we're hovering somewhere between 7 and 8%. And, we're at the end of 2023. So, people, and maybe you can talk to this more than I, but do people seem to be bothered by it at all?
You are losing out on your like casual looker. Like, okay, maybe I'll buy a house. Maybe this will be nice. I always use my husband and I as an example of, hey, we thought about it a couple years ago, but now we're like, we like
Yeah,
our neighborhood. It fits our needs. We're not going to move. So people like me who maybe previously would have been in the market probably aren't. But
sure.
the reality is there are still a lot of folks that are moving. Our housing and economy is actually really, really strong. It's just more what is the need? People are still having babies. People are still unfortunately dying, right? You've got to sell off some of
Sure.
those things. Fortunately, people are still getting divorced or relocating for work. So the good things in life and the not so good things in life, which are still creating opportunities for movement and moving. And housing and real estate, in my opinion, is still a really, really great value because if you look statistically, and you probably know this about me, I'm a little bit of a data nerd and I'm okay with it. But if you look over the past 80 years, housing has appreciated 73 out of those 80 years. And that
Wow.
is a trend that is looking to continue because there isn't
Yeah.
any inventory.
Doesn't seem like the prices are going down anytime
No.
soon. And I think you're right. I mean, people are smart these days. Buyers are smart. You know, it, the interest rates can continue to go up. And you know what else always goes up? Rent.
Hmm.
So, the interest rate on renting is 100%, right?
Hmm.
That's the way I look at it. So if you're on the fence and you're wondering about it, or you're worried about the interest rate, one, understand where things are at historically, right? This isn't unheard of.
Hmm.
Over the last 50 some years, the average interest rates between 7 and 8%. The problem is like the last 10 or 15, it's been 4 to 5%. So
Yeah.
people are used to that number, but historically it's been higher than what it was the last decade. I think it's probably going to come down a little bit at some point. You never know. Like I said, I'm not in the predicting business, but I think the 2-1 buy down is a great tool for people who are saying, like, hey, look, I think it could be better in 3 years. I want to take advantage of it this year, have a lower payment. Maybe I'm making more money year 2, year 3 down the road. And this is an opportunity for them to do so.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And whatever we can do to save folks a little bit of money and get them into homes, I think is always a positive thing.
Absolutely. Any other tips for us?
So, biggest tip is to remember, as interest rates climb, it's not just mortgages. So, pro tip that I shared with my past clients this past week was look, take a look at your savings accounts. If you are still paying zero point 0.1, zero point 0.3 on those accounts, it's time to move them to a high
Hmm.
yield savings account. I actually did this a couple of months ago in my own life, and I went from making like $4 a month in interest to making like $80 a month in interest.
Yeah.
So, really taking an opportunity where things are maybe a little different and reevaluating some of those financial pieces to say, okay, just because it's raising here, where else is it maybe increasing that I can then gain on that
Yeah.
as well? So, check your bank
Absolutely.
statements. You might be
Great.
surprised.
That's a great tip. And I always tell people like credit card interest rates are up, car interest rates
Hmm.
are up, and people still seem to be buying those as well. So
For sure.
it's wild. But Julie, thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to
Yeah.
put a link to all of your information in the description box below. Julie is licensed in like 25 states, I think.
Yep.
So
Coast
not
to
just here in
coast.
Ohio. If you're looking anywhere, in those states, Julie can help you out. All of our information in the description box below, along with mine and Josh's, our phone numbers, emails, websites down below. Reach out to us when you're ready to buy or sell your great house. Julie, thanks again.